It's nice to not only see your face, but that we actually get to bow to each other now and feel it in return, which is something I'll be speaking about. But first, let's enjoy our sitting together for a few minutes. As we sit together in these first few minutes, my wish that as you bring your own attention and energy to your sitting, you also feel the energy and attention of all those that are sitting with you, some of whom you can see on the screen, and feel the immense power of something so simple and quiet. This weaving together of lives across the globe, of a simple but powerful intention to care for each other, both offering yourself by your sitting and your silence and uprightness, even if you're lying down. It's the intention. And then receiving the care and kindness from others as they offer their silent attention to you. And in this way, we weave together this vast robe of liberation, which we'll chant in a few moments. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. As I look at the screen and look at the patterns that change and scroll through the pages, it reminds me of each time my mother shows me the newest blanket or shawl or afghan that she's knitted or crocheted, and the different patterns and the different colors of the yarn. It's always different, but equally comforting, no matter what the pattern and what the shape. Somewhat like this. I also wanted to just name, for those of you in the United States, you'll know this. If you're in the UK or Europe, maybe not, but there was yet another mass shooting in Boulder, Colorado yesterday, and a number of people were killed. So I'd like to just dedicate our efforts and our practice today to those people and to everyone who's touched by it, which means all of us, but those who were much closer, including the person who struggled with such difficulty that they would make such a decision to be harmful in that way. I didn't know about this, of course, when I began to prepare what I hope to offer as a reflection today. Last time, I believe I spoke a bit about kindness. And today, I wanted to take it further and speak just a little bit about care as the heart of our practice. And in one of my practice discussion groups, somebody brought forward a book which I had received as a gift. And some of you may know, I don't know if you can see it because of the reflection. Do you know this little book, some of you? I see Trudy, the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. The author was born in Northumberland. And it's a remarkable little book. I might have to do a whole retreat on this book. And I'm not going to focus on it fully today, although I probably will come back. But as we looked at it yesterday, there are beautiful drawings. And in this page, it says, the mole asked the little boy, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And the little boy said, "Kind." And you know in this first page that this is not going to be an ordinary book. And that's the answer, like inquiry to the question. And on the next page, the boy asked the mole, "What do you think success is?" And the mole says, "To love." You know, the name that Peg and I chose for the center and the work we do is Appamada. Some of you know this, most of you do, but it's worth just a small repeat. That in the Pali record of the Buddha's teachings, Appamada is the final word that was spoken at the end of his life as he was dying. And his followers were asking him, what should we do? How are we going to manage when you're gone? And he said something like, carry forward with Appamada, which essentially means diligence, but more than just diligence, with a mindful, heartfelt diligence, clear, mindful care. And at other times in his teaching life, he had spoken about this term, Appamada. And he even said Appamada was, you've heard us use this phrase, the elephant's footprint. Appamada, the elephant's footprint is the biggest one in the forest. All the other footprints can fit inside of it. All the other teachings fit inside of mindful, clear, diligent care. So it's worthy, I think, of our reflection today. There was a Chinese physician in the end of the 6th and first part of the 7th century, Sun Si Miao. And one quotation from his work, he said, "People fall ill because they do not know they are loved and cherished." And we live in a world right now where there are a number of people who have fallen ill and those recovering, and some haven't. But aside from viruses and violent people, all of us can fall ill if we don't feel loved and cherished. Sun Si Miao was called the king of medicine in China because of his tremendous teachings and care. And it was exactly the same time that Chan, which later became Zen, began to develop in China. And those teachers were revolutionary. They took the Buddhism of northern India and received it with their Taoist background to form a revolutionary kind of practice that we practice now, which encourages us to find a kind of freedom to meet the world, as I was suggesting a moment ago, and then receive the world and respond to it. The freedom to meet and receive the world with some clarity, which we call wisdom, and then to respond to the world with compassion, with a heart of care. And to fully appreciate our life, the one we have, and to then offer ourselves wholeheartedly to that life. You've heard us use the term sometimes appreciative and contributory. We can appreciate our life and contribute ourselves to the life, which is relational and improvisational all the time, meeting situations without obstruction. This is our practice to help remove the barriers to both receiving our life and responding to it. Basically, to learn to both offer and receive care from others, to offer back and to receive care, and to offer and receive care in the world within you, deep inside. So we chant, vast as the robe of liberation, realizing this way in which we're held and wrapped together like we're sitting. But also, it's not just the fabric of being held, it's the dance with freedom, without obstruction, dancing without being too self-conscious, without stepping on each other's toes maybe too much, always listening to the music, which is the Dharma, with care. And what about these obstructions? What about meeting life and receiving it without obstruction? Well, we know that the Buddha's teachings said there are 3 primary barriers. Sometimes they're spoken of as greed, hate, and delusion. Let's start at the end, just quickly. What gets in the way of the expression of appamada, of diligent care? Delusion, which is really a deep and abiding confusion. And the confusion is that we experience ourselves as completely independent, separate selves and beings, and that sets up a special kind of confusion, because if we're separate and individual, then we begin to slowly feel the fear about the scarcity of care, scarcity of attention, scarcity of generosity or kindness, a real help, compassion and love. And all of us, I'm sure we can tell the stories of growing up in our families and trying to find a way to become an adult or some semblance of an adult. And it can seem like this scarcity of care is the truth of the matter. But really it's just the truth at that time, around which we sometimes make lifelong decisions. Because fear and hurt in these situations lead us to form, protective and habitual contractions, a kind of reactivity, and competition for what seems scarce. And all of those patterns look like the other two obstructions, greed and hatred, or I like to say aversion and grasping, the two sides of turning away and clinging, the ways that we respond. And all of these things, without going into them, really emerge from this hurt and fear and scarcity of kindness and care. This is how we fall not only ill, but fall into the habit patterns which we call suffering. So the Buddha suggested carry forward with appamada, with clear, diligent care. The old Chinese physician let us know that he thought that people fell ill because they didn't know that they were loved and cherished. Maizumi Roshi, in the contemporary setting, said, appreciate your life. And also offer yourself back to the life that you have. The path to working with these obstructions are the Four Noble Truths, the four practice principles. The first one, life is everything that it is. We usually use that word dukkha about dissatisfaction, but that's the dissatisfaction of the separation. Life isn't exactly what we hoped for. And it's not everything that we feared. It's certainly not what we were told or promised. It's just everything that it is, fully, always, reliably. You get the whole thing, which causes the second one, the second noble truth, which is we tend to react to the whole catastrophe in very predictable ways, by grasping what we want and pushing away or turning away from what we don't. And we create, by our reactivity, the very obstructions that we're seeking to resolve. And this is the cycle. The third noble truth says that we can learn to contain this reactivity, it's human, but transform the energy rather than into habit patterns, into responsible care, into appamada, into diligent mindful care. That's the path. And there is a way of describing that path, which is the Eightfold Path, the practice turn, the fourth noble truth, where everything returns to the world of care. In the traditional list, it says right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action. There's that list that you're familiar with. But listen, what if it's like this? Number one, our understanding is in accord with a life oriented by care. Secondly, our thoughts are in accord with a life based in care. Our speech, number three, is in accord with this life of care. Number four, our actions reflect our commitment to care. 5, our livelihood supports a life dedicated to care. 6, our efforts and energy support a life dedicated to care. And 7, our mindful practices remind us of the centrality and essential nature of care. And finally, concentration practices support our commitment to care. You can frame every one of the Eightfold Path into a way of following the practice of care, of following appamada, of appreciating our life as it is, which is, we'll chant later, the only teacher. Anything that you truly appreciate and value, you're going to care for, right? Something that you really value, you take care of. And the more something is struggling or broken that you care about, the more you care for it, or the more care it requires. Sometimes that's ourselves, sometimes that's others. Fear seems to have a corrosive or eroding factor in care. Fear begins to erode care. But kindness and friendship nourish care. And our love for each other and ourselves is the embodiment of care. So, it's like I'm taking a jewel and just looking at it from different places, really, just speaking about care as the central feature. I was even playing a little bit, maybe awkwardly, with our vow. Because I spoke about our practice, our essential practice, the path, and what's the vow? Well, the Bodhisattva vow is our primary vow. And let's insert care and play with it a little bit. Beings are numberless. I vow to care for them all. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to remove obstructions to care. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them all with diligent, mindful care. And Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it with care and love. And as often we chant, we include our community in the second recitation. Beings are numberless. We vow to offer care for them all together. Delusions are inexhaustible. We vow to remove obstructions to care together. Through caring for each other. Dharma gates are boundless. We vow to enter them all with diligent, mindful care together. And Buddha's way is unsurpassable. We vow to embody it with care and love together. And that beautiful third recitation where it's universal. Beings are numberless. This vow frees infinite care. Delusions are inexhaustible. This vow ends all obstacles to care. Dharma gates are boundless. This vow enters the inconceivable world of care. And Buddha's way is unsurpassable. This vow embodies profound care. And this embodiment of profound care is the essence of appamada, of our practice. It's like the little boy saying, when I grow up, I want to be kind. And understanding what success is to love and be loved. So, in some ways, very simple teachings, but I just wanted to walk us through some things that sound more like our Buddhist teachings. But in the world right now, I think there's nothing more important. In the everyday world, there's nothing more important. But it's feels close right now. This need for offering care and receiving care in the world that we live in. So our practice brings us to not only understanding that centrality, but also giving us a path to removing obstructions and obstacles, and a vow to come back to remember how to orient ourselves. So in terms of your path, your vow, obstructions you might be meeting, maybe that's what we could talk about to support your practice, to support the dance without our stepping on each other's toes too much, and without losing the music of the Dharma. So please raise your hand, and Maria will help you come forward. Or you can enjoy looking at all the sweet faces on the screen and offer your care. and receive their gaze back.
We have Cassie.
I'll be happy to have Cassie. There she is.
Um, I guess I thought to first of all, I was very touched by the um, in accordance with care. That the I'm going to write that down and write it down over and over and over again. Um, and where I find my place of struggle is in habits that are obstacles to self care.
Mhm.
That offering care to others seems to bubble up without any resistance.
Mhm.
But, you know, deep habits that were, initially forms that saved me that became forms that keep me away.
Yeah.
Um,
So you have that awareness as a starting point. They're not, you're not, so they're delusions when you believe that those obstructions are the way you should be acting. You believe
or
them.
that it would be kind to myself at that moment. And it's not.
Yeah. And so you begin to wake up to realize the pain or the suffering inherent in what you used to take as ordinary or necessary.
Right.
Right. And then you feel the additional discomfort actually with that awareness.
Oh yeah, sure. Awareness is a bitch. We've known that for a while.
And she frees you if you let her.
Right.
It's the next step, you know. Yeah. And one thing that I think is crucial and why I took the time to go through the Bodhisattva vow in those three ways is to also underscore that this appreciative and contributory, receiving and giving, it's a it's a two-way street. You can't actually do it all alone. You can't just sit in zazen or do your study and expect for the full transformation to take its course. It requires what we're doing right now. If you step forward, you raise your hand, you've just asked for help. Maria responded by helping you. I came forward. All these other people are on your side right now, I know. And by you,
Yeah. I scrolled through the page. It's just wonderful seeing.
I know.
It's just
And
fabulous.
your being here is help. You're offering something to them.
Mm.
So that no giver, no receiver, no gift thing starts to open. And within that context, I think you have a little more open path to self-care because you have help. You have warm eyes, you have warm smiles, you have voices, you have hands. And some days you'll have more hugs.
Maybe April.
Yes, and walks and talks and dinners and coffees and
Mm-hmm.
tea. And so that within that framework of care, care becomes what you start being immersed in instead of the fears and ideas and or just barriers and not noticing. Sometimes it takes a lot of focus, sure. Once you wake up to certain things, it takes some effort and some diligence, but that actually doesn't happen until you begin to sort of marinate
Right.
and they care and they feel that you know, people fall ill because they don't feel loved and cherished.
Yeah, that struck me like a lightning bolt too. I was just like, oh yeah, there it is, and I
Yeah,
can see
that
it from
sentence is what
adolescence.
started. That's the whole thing for me. Mm. And what you offer so beautifully with your little, what I call your nieces and nephews,
Yeah.
and that they offer back to you as kind of filling in some gaps from the family that you grew up in.
Yeah, it's really, really big. Stuff happening right now with Sam is really, really big.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and, you know, seeing him and seeing what he hid and how early he started to hide, and looking back over the time, like, oh, I can see him hidden there now. And I always wondered why in my childhood nobody ever came after me. And I was just like, oh, he was hiding and I didn't come after him. I knew he was separating, but he wasn't ready to say. And and so I guess there was some respect to that. Uh,
You know
but
what that's like.
pardon?
You know what it's like not
And
to be respected.
yeah, 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 yeah.
This is the improvisational nature. You go off on this side and you say, oh, that's too far. And you come this way, it's like, oh, maybe that's too far. You find your way. That's the dance. That's exactly the dance of care.
And
So people understand, you don't have to say more, but what is his age?
Sam is 13 and has come out to his family as a non binary gender and is identifying as queer. And because that was the same age that I did the same thing, it is it is a lot of work right now to process. And for him then to come to me and for me to have my voice from that period
That's right.
is
You didn't have that.
mm-mm, mm-mm.
So now you can offer your care as healing for him.
Yeah, and with his parents too. His mom. I've always been very, very loved by the family, and his mother has doubled down on the love for me when I'm there because I feel like directly because of what's going on now with Sam
Yeah.
and negotiating those really important things through both parents and the child is extraordinarily powerful
And really important to you, right?
and really important to me.
So that means you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, so that I can be there for him.
Yes. That's the thing. When things struggle or are broken, they require more care. So that brings you to the deep practice motivation of vow of care.
Yeah,
It's actually through love, not through get your act together or something. That doesn't do
right,
it.
right.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that so intimately and so wholeheartedly.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm. We love you.
Thanks. I'll be right back.
Look
And
around.
everybody across
Yeah.
the screens.
Boy, doesn't it make a difference to have everybody's face on the
It's
screen?
so wonderful. And so wonderful to see them from all the different places of the country and world, too, is just spectacular.
Yeah.
So, a bow to each of you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
This is the lived example. This is a perfect teaching. Thank you. I see Claudine.
Claudine, yes.
Ah, there we are. You're still muted. Oh, there we go. Okay, now I'm muted.
Yes. Thank you for your talk. It was so touching. And I just understood how I was in my way. I was really in the way all my life to stop love. And it was quite so clear.
Hmm.
And I struggled all my life, but on the other hand, I didn't want to stop to be angry at my mother or to stop to be indignant for the other person I was in love a few years ago. And I didn't want to stop that. And suddenly when you talked, I suddenly thought, oh, well, because I didn't receive what I wanted from my mother, from this person. So I decided that I decided some way to close my heart,
Yeah.
but I don't need to.
No, it's a choice.
And
You moved from
yeah, and
grasping to aversion.
yes, and suddenly it was suddenly so clear.
Good, 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 good.
And
That's the awakening. That's the light coming on.
yeah, and that is this mudra we make with our hands when we sit. And suddenly I began to make like an Akomi exercise, open my hands to contribute, and then taking back appreciation and open again. Wow. So thank you so much.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
thank you everybody, because I really, well, I, I felt so much that you were all there when we were sitting and listening to Flint. And I thought I would be so afraid to talk with so many people here. And then I, I, I felt suddenly that no, it was just giving and receiving and receiving and giving.
And
Thank
it's
you so
and
much,
you've
everybody
been
in Flint.
and you've been a bit alone during all this period. During COVID, it's nice to
Yes,
connect, you know.
yes. And it was so true for me that not to be loved and not to love was brought me almost to death. So these
Mhm.
words went very, very deep.
Yes,
So it's a big joy. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you so much, Flint.
me too.
Oh, we have Joan.
Joan Harmon. We go from the shore of Lake Geneva to the shore of Town Lake in Austin, Texas.
um, what this is bringing to my mind was the time when I felt that love was finite.
Hmm.
And of course, that was when I was young. And the more I experienced, and of course, it really took having my second child and loving my second child with all my heart, just as I did my first child, and realizing if I had a zillion children, I would have love for all of them.
You
And
wouldn't
that
run
love
out.
is not, no, love is not finite. We don't have to be stingy with our love.
Mhm.
There is enough for everyone.
Yes, and part of our delusion is we conflate that universal, undying, unending love with very human things like attention or saying the right
Mhm.
thing or the wrong, a whole lot of small things,
Yeah.
and chip away at this abundance that's there.
Mhm. And getting greedy with it, that does this person love me more or most? And uh, there's not a measure. Um, there isn't a sense, but that's in a real small minded sense.
Yeah, yeah. And the way that underneath that grasping and the sense of competition is fear.
Mhm.
We really are terrified because we require each other and we require love for our. Um, it's like a vitamin that we require, and what you're saying is it's infinitely available, but we miss it.
We feel so desperate for it
Yeah, I feel so
that
desperate
we
for
miss
all
it.
these reasons. Yeah. Mhm.
We miss
And there are people that, withhold and punish, and there are people that are cruel and all kind of things. But that's still in a world suffused with love, and what you're seeing is the lack of it. You're seeing the way people have fallen ill for the lack of being loved and cherished.
well, and perhaps are feeling that love is finite.
That's right.
So they have to grasp it and have to dole it out and
That's
for
right.
fear that they won't get their portion.
And that sets up a sequence of suffering.
Mhm.
So as we come back and have our view and our understanding and our work and our everything, the Eightfold Path, as we begin to reorder it, you have this turnaround. It's just like Claudine was talking about. We're suddenly like, oh, there's a different choice.
Yes.
Yeah. And your two children help you begin to see, oh, this is not 50% here and 50%. It's 100% and 100% and 100% and 100% always.
And just when I think about it now, I just feel my chest growing. You know, it's just bountiful and full.
And that's the classic, by the way, what you just did was one of the classic ways of, they say, calling forward bodhicitta, the desire that everyone be free, and bringing up compassion as you think about someone or something, a situation that you love very much, and it's like priming the pump. It begins to flow. So thank you for reminding us of that. You can have something like that that reminds you when you've lost your way. It's very human. It isn't some spiritual idea. It's embodied.
This is all very human.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Thanks, Joan. It's wonderful to see you today.
Oh, thank you.
It's wonderful to see everyone pitch in the chat. Sometimes if you don't notice, there are these lovely conversations going on. Care on the side, you know. What other things are bubbling around inside that I can support you around? It doesn't even have to be about this topic. Rosemary,
Rosemary.
yeah.
So muted, okay. Oh, I'm on, okay, good. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. One of the obstructions that I am finding to just fully be there and care in the ways that I want to is time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've always had a very busy life. And since 2020, with everything that that came about, and Zen for me, with totally new meditation, the desire, is there. But I'm finding I don't really want to adjust too much all of the other, projects in my life. So that's kind of where I'm at, just trying to, and that of course makes everything very frustrating because I'm trying to, do some new things and maintain the old. And so, yeah, it's it's quite a dance at this point.
Well, it's what you're talking about in a way is that sense that we get when we reorient our vow.
Yes.
Because you see in some ways what you have vowed, how you've aligned your life, and suddenly things shifted. And there's something else that you'd like to orient to a turn, but you've been oriented this way. And there's an old maxim you've probably heard before. Work fills available space. Is that if you don't carve it out, you're just going to work.
Yeah.
And so it means you have to bring mindful, diligent care to the way that you structure your time.
Exactly.
Not try to figure out how to manage time so you can care for yourself. And to bring that mindful, diligent care to the one in you who is pushing you or managing your time. And find out about what her fears are if she begins to soften the rigid or strong way in which she directs you around time. It looks like on your face that struck a chord somehow.
Yeah, definitely. I like the idea of taking taking care of the part that just wants to get back into the busyness.
Yes, and find out what she worries about if she were to relax that a little bit. You know? So so there's your practice edge.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. May it go well for you. Someone texted me earlier before we began, um, respectfully saying, I've injured my back and I'm going to have to lie down. I can't sit. But I want to be with you. And then in the chat, we're having someone say, "Oh, I think I'm falling asleep," and I always want to say, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself first. But each of those people were respectful and cared for the group too by saying, "This is the situation. I just want to let you know." So there's both care for the group and care for self, and one doesn't have to take over the other.
Laura.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Flint. Hi, everyone. I feel really tender with this subject. It really is elevating something that does feel so important right now. And I wanted to share that I felt kind of a practice turn when you restated the Bodhisattva Vow. And it came up a little bit when you were chatting with Cassie too, about how delusions are something that I actually have a lot of fear around. And the phrasing of delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them, feeds this idea that I think I grew up with, that if you're logical enough and smart enough, you can sort of avoid all the human trappings. And if you can, sort of like control your emotions, that was sort of the dynamic in the household. But to hear instead this element of bringing care to the delusions, and that what you were engaging with Cassie, if I'm getting this right, that it's about awareness of the delusions, not that will then eliminate all delusions. And it just shifted the relationship of a fear-based relationship to delusions and all that I don't know, and all the confusion when you associate it with that word confusion. I feel so much confusion all the time. Yeah, and to know I can meet that with care was a big turn.
Good. That really makes a big change, doesn't it?
It does.
That you actually take care of those parts of you that carry the delusions, and see what the confusion is and what the obstructions are. And suddenly there's infinite directions to face for care. And I would imagine that when you live in a household where you're talking about controlling of emotions, or where there's some mental illness, like the struggles with your brother and things, it becomes terrifying.
Yeah.
And impossible to stop. But you can offer care.
Right. Which has also been useful in all of my relationships now, and recognizing this element of how my environment created this disaster mindset we've talked about before, assuming that any innocent situation can actually turn into disaster because that was the experience sometimes. Yep. And not seeing that as a problem or anything wrong, but also meeting that with care. And it's just very inclusive. It's the elephant's footprint. I feel like it's so big to bring everything in, as opposed to othering parts of ourselves, which is a part of myself who also likes to think she can control things.
That's a really nice way to state practice, to bring everything in instead of othering everything. That's a really great phrase. To use. And when we were running it through the Four Noble Truths, it's like the difficulties that were happening in your family were happening. That's what it was.
Right.
And everyone had their reactivity.
Mhm.
they grasped to, what they pushed away, what they didn't want to notice and stay confused about. But there's a way of suddenly turning all that, it gets freed up for care,
Mhm.
by exactly what you're doing. And then there's a path where our views and our intentions start to line up with care
Mhm.
instead of with the fear. The
Yeah,
fear's there, but you're caring for the fear.
right.
The confusion is there, but you're caring for because the one who's caring is the Buddha, the Bodhisattva inside.
Mm.
And the parts that carry the difficulties are those who are being cared for.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And just a small thank you to the group too. I had a sensation when we were meditating and you recognized how we are holding each other here. And I just had this realization that it's very rare that I think to call upon the resources of the Sangha, to call upon everybody's practice here as something that I can tap into. It's there for me too. And so that was really meaningful.
One of the greatest forms of courage to ask for help. Mhm. So naturally, we bow to each other.
That's right.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Flint.
When Laura started talking, she mentioned this, the tenderness of not only each person speaking, but the topic. And I wondered if that was part of the hesitation in the beginning of people coming forward. That there's a certain kind of tenderness in this that brings forward kind of a shyness. Because as each person spoken, it's been quite tender and sweet and beautiful. We have a few more moments if there's anything remaining. I'd love to, as Rosemary would say, don't want to waste the time,
Josh and Trudy, well, Josh or Trudy, or both.
We always get 2 for 1, don't we, Maria?
Yeah.
There you go.
The flowers on our mantelpiece, and I was thinking how I love keeping them going, and freshening the water and moving them about, and there's something about that sense of tenderness that I was thinking about self-care not being this thing you do to yourself, but something you allow yourself to wash in. Yes. And that had a kind of really different feeling as I was feeling that, like, what would it be like to just open to the care that's flowing all the time, rather than it's something I have to do.
That's wonderful, because it's a big turn for a mother, a woman and a wife. Yeah, that
self-reliant mother.
That care isn't an instrumental activity that one performs. It's this vast robe of liberation in which we can immerse ourselves and steep ourselves in, and both receive and express, like breathing. Breathing is not something you have to do.
No, I mean, you can remember sometimes it's quite a good idea to breathe, but it was something about that. Yeah, it was such a tender thing. So I was just so deeply reminded of Ginny's favorite poem, which I don't know if there's time for me to read it, but yes. I know where you can get.
I know how you can get. Yep, the Rumi.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Hafiz or Rumi.
Oh, maybe Hafiz. Yeah, one of those.
I know the way you can get. I know the way you can get when you've not had a drink of love. Your face hardens and your sweet muscles cramp. Children become concerned about a strange look that appears in your eyes, which even begins to worry your own mirror and nose. Squirrels and birds sense your sadness and call an important conference in a tall tree. They decide which secret code to chant to help your mind and soul. Even angels fear that brand of madness that arrays itself against the world and throws sharp stones and spears into the innocent and oneself. Oh, I know the way you can get if you've not been drinking love. You might rip apart every sentence your friends and teachers say, looking for hidden clauses. You might weigh every word like a scale on a dead fish. You might pull out a ruler to measure from every angle in your darkness the beautiful dimensions of a heart you once trusted. I know the way you can get if you've not had a drink from love's hands. That is why all the great ones speak of the vital need to keep remembering God, so you will come to know and see him as being so playful and wanting, just wanting to help. That's why Hafiz says, bring your cup near me, for all I care about is quenching your thirst for freedom. All a sane man can ever care about is giving love.
A little bell for Ginny too.
Thank you, Jenny.
I love that line because it accords with my own vow. All I really care about is bringing that forward and quenching your thirst. I see Josh smiling deeply when I said that. So you know the feeling,
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and thanks for reading it so beautifully as always. And I love that poem. And for those who don't know, Ginny was from Sheffield, England, at least when we knew her, and a retired physician, and helped bring the first Hakomi trainings and many other trainings. But she was a dynamic force, much beyond that, and a great friend.
Yeah.
And had died a few years ago, pancreatic cancer. So we miss her.
We miss her.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. And maybe we'll do our final chant now. The 4 practice principles, which remind us of the path and practice of care. Caught in a self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Thank you so much for all of your care and for our continued grace to be together. I'll turn it over to Maria, and hopefully some of you can hang out and continue to be with each other, offering care.
Thank you so much, Flint. Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support makes a huge difference. There is a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you very much, everybody. And we now go over to the second part of our evening, which is after inquiry, where we all meet on the virtual porch, and you're all welcome. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.